100 Years, 100 Voices. A St. John Centennial Oral History project conceived and produced by WSJS Radio, where every day is history.
Hi everyone, welcome to WSJS Radio. My name is Felipe Alborz Riera, and today I'm going to interview my mom, Tere Riera Carrión.
Hello Felipe, hello everyone.
Hi, alright. So the first question I have for you, Mommy, is when did you attend St. John's?
So I was here for the larger part of the 80s. I graduated in 1988, so almost the full decade of the 80s. And I was here in part of elementary school, middle school, and the high school.
Okay, and what was your favorite thing about St. John's in the 80s?
Well, St. John's really felt like home. It was a place where one would like to come in the morning and stay here during the day, and for many of us actually stay after school until very late at night because we had so many activities. We had sports games that were going on, as you do now. I remember at that time, the girls, for example, when I was in high school, the girls would play softball. And usually we would play in schools that were pretty far from the metropolitan area. So we would come back in the late afternoon after the games, and then we would have practices for other activities like forensics or oratoria or even French oratory, which was one of the activities that was held here. And I remember many years during my high school career that I would walk into school at 7:45 in the morning and get back home at about 11 o'clock at night. This was, it was a safer time for Puerto Rico, and we could walk to our homes with a greater degree of safety, like I said, and we were very involved in school. But in general, I just remember I was very, very happy here. Every single year that I was here, it was a happy place, and during the summer, I was looking forward to coming back. During Christmas, I was looking forward to the beginning of the second semester as well.
And so in your time in St. John's, where was home?
Well, home was here in San Juan, actually here in Condado. So St. John's was just about 5 to 10 minutes away from my house, even less. And I really enjoyed the urban aspect of St. John's, the fact that we were nestled in the city of Condado. Everything is close by. Also, at that time, we had lunch passes in the high school, so we could go out and go to, there was a place called Howard Johnson's, which was a hotel, and they had a really nice restaurant there. And I remember on D-Days, we had a double block, so invariably the students would go out and have lunch at this place, the Howard Johnson's, and we would also walk towards the area where the Walgreens is now. Across the street there was a Pizza Hut, so we would go as far as the Ashford and Condado Street area.
Cool.
Yeah, close to the greenhouse.
Who went to St. John's with you? Wow. Any family members?
Well, when I was in school, there were many, many cousins. And when I say many, literally, I had probably about 20 cousins who were here in school from both families. Yeah, and my mom was also the choir. She was the choir founder, the elementary school choir founder, and she was the music teacher in school. Now, she was not my teacher because I was already in the middle school to high school transition when she came to St. John's. But yeah, it was she was here as well, and my siblings were here. When I started, there were 4 of us, and then gradually my older sister graduated, and my brother ended up going to another school. He went to the States first, and then another school here in Puerto Rico. And then my youngest brother was also in school.
You said you had many events in school, so tell me about some of the events you had.
Well, one of the main events definitely was Noche Puertorriqueña. I think the biggest difference between your Noche Puertorriqueña and ours is that our Noche Puertorriqueña preceded the Christmas season. It was the activity that would lead into the Christmas period here in Puerto Rico. And so that was big, and it was a big event for the student council, and the parents were very involved. During the time that I was in school, Noche Puertorriqueña became the main, if I'm not mistaken, it was the main fundraising event of the year. So the level of involvement from parents and the community in the way of donations was quite substantial. I remember that when I was in high school, there was a big push for raising funds for what is now the gym. So, in terms of the physical plant, the biggest change that St. John's experienced during the decade that I was here was the construction of that gym that's in the middle, in the center of the school right now. For us, it was just a dirt area which had a little house that was the pre-kinder. There was only one pre-kinder, and it was a little wooden house with an air conditioner by itself, and then we had all of this, basically campus, these grounds, and that's where we would play during recess. We would play informally. We wouldn't. I don't remember having, the sports or PE in the grounds, but we did play informally, kicking ball, and we played baseball. The boys used to play football there. We played, this was something that I loved, Chinese jump rope was very popular at that time, so mostly the girls. I don't remember the boys playing that, but we played Chinese jump rope in this very, very big area. I mean, like I said, you could actually stage a game of baseball. That's how big it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
And were you in any clubs?
Yeah, the clubs are very similar to what you have now as well. Let me see. It's mostly in the high school. I don't remember there being that many clubs for the middle school students. The offer of extending the clubs to the middle school, I think, came later. But we had a club, obviously the student council was like very popular. That was the main thing. And actually I ran for vice president of the student council in 10th grade, and I won, which was a big thing because girls at that time, ironically, were not usually elected for the main positions of the student council. Usually the girls would be the secretary and sometimes treasurer, but I don't remember when I was here ever having a girl as president of the student council or even vice president. There might have been one, I think, Danny Twitchman's sister, much older than me. And then I won, and then I decided to run for president. I ended up not winning for president of the council, but that was something that I think brought about this new age of girls running for the council. And as I have seen from my time as a mother, it's actually harder now for the boys to win for the presidency. And that's one of the things that I loved about St. John's. So we're, despite the trends, there were many opportunities for girls. It seemed like in that sense, a very liberal environment where girls would be encouraged and girls would feel like there weren't any limitations.
Wow. Okay.
So things that you take for granted now, back in the 80s, were something that that adults had to encourage, so that it would happen.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. How times have changed. So, what do you most remember influenced you as an adult?
Well, I think the activity that most helped me in my future life was public speaking. I was recruited, I think, in 8th grade to participate in the French oratory, the public speaking competition. So I started doing that as a middle schooler, and then I did that throughout high school. And I had for French, I had Madame Beaumont, who was an incredible teacher. People would comment on how good the pronunciation of the students of St. John's was. And, people who are native French speakers would always compliment me on my French, and it's the product of the French that was taught here by Madame Beaumont and also Madame Lugo, Vivian Lugo. And then I had a great teacher for Spanish oratory, Rosa Cabanillas, who was somebody that I truly loved, and I kept very close with, even beyond my years at St. John's. And she was the one who inspired me to work on speeches as a writer, and who cultivated the art of public speaking in me and many of the other students. Actually, her grandchildren are here now. She was a phenomenal teacher. And for English, we had several coaches, but this coach for the Spanish oratory, I remember she would have no limits on her time. She would stay here until as late, as I mentioned before, as late as 11 o'clock at night, and she would come on Saturdays and just work with us constantly to get us ready for the competitions. And St. John's was a very successful school at these tournaments.
Can you tell me what teacher? You said that many teachers have influenced you. Can you tell me one that just stood out the most?
No, that's a difficult call, because I really loved many of my teachers here. And when I say loved, I mean that it goes beyond a sense of gratitude for the way that that they cultivated our minds. These teachers made us feel like family. And this is what that nurturing environment of St. John's is what made it feel like a second home. Like I said before, you walked in here and you would go to see your teachers, and they would hug and embrace you. There wasn't any kind of distance between the students and the teachers. The faculty was very close to us, and they always felt like they could talk to us. Now, of course, I'm trying to avoid the question, because I feel like that for many teachers. I had a teacher, the one who I guess prepared me the most for college, I would have to say, was Deborah Ferdman, who was the Spanish AP teacher. That was a very hard class. We had to work on 5 papers, and like collegiate papers, and then the revisions of those. So because I ended up devoting a large part of my life to writing and editing, I would say that she was the biggest influence, because she was the one who taught me the value of editing, and also the structure of paper writing, which was probably the most important tool for college. And when I got to college, I had already gone through this very difficult process of learning how to write a paper.
And tell me something else about those times. Tell me something that's changed from then and that's changed now. The difference from back then and the difference from now.
Well, I think the fact that I can answer that question means that I have a very clear and vivid memory of my time here. I can remember stuff from 5th grade, where the first time that we played badminton. I remember, of course, that we didn't have any uniforms, and just the whole look of St. John's was different from anything that you would see outside the walls of the school. It was a very relaxed look. Kids in the elementary would be wearing shirts from their older siblings who had visited colleges, and we were very close, by the way, to something I wanted to mention. As elementary school students and middle school students, we were very close to the high school students. The 3 divisions were very tight. If there was an election going on at the high school level, somehow the kids were involved. And in the middle school, in the middle school, we voted for the council. So people from 12th grade would recruit students from the 6th grade as their campaign managers and staffers. And that really brought us together. We felt like it was a very cool place to be, because you could literally spend time with teenagers, and these teenagers, when we were in the elementary and middle school, we idolized. So again, that also nurtured this feeling of being a family here.
So what do you remember? Tell me one event that you would love to go, if there were a time travel machine, you would love to just go back to and relive that moment.
Before I became a parent, if you had asked me which 4 years of my life I would like to repeat, I would have said high school at St. John's. It was a very happy time. I really thrived here because St. John's sounded different. St. John's smelled different. St. John's looked different from anything beyond these walls. You walk into the school and the whole feeling, the whole character of the school was different from everything that I knew. St. John's was, and I think remains, a very diverse school. There was a racial diversity, there was ethnic, religious diversity, and it was all celebrated. St. John's was very relaxed as an academic environment. The kinds of clothes that we would wear were the things that were coming out, the trendy, fashionable things that were coming out. The playero shirts, I remember, was a big thing, and all the students were wearing them, and these topsiders, and the baggy, oversized sweaters and baggy, oversized shirts, and that whole look.
Mommy, tell me more about. Were you a music student?
Well, I wasn't a music student here at St. John's. I was a student of piano and violin, so I had to go to the conservatory for that. But St. John's did have a music program in the elementary school, and at some point during my high school years, or maybe middle school, no, I think it was high school, there was a music appreciation program. One time, this professor that I was telling you about, Ferdman, she had what was called Ciclo Cultural, and they would invite artists, classical music artists, and one time I was invited, so I did a full program, a full violin recital with Narciso Figueroa on the piano. Yeah, here at the stage, it was, you call it differently, you call it the cafeteria. We used to call it the Hurricane Center. It was always the Hurricane Center.
What was the music that people liked to listen back then?
Oh, I think the music of the 80s was great. You guys are still listening to our music. I personally loved people like Pat Benatar and Cyndi Lauper and Van Halen. Had a very popular song, I think it was called 1984, or the record was called 1984, something like that. Journey was very popular. Air Supply, people used to dance the boleros, the soft music and the parties. A lot of that. So the girls would listen to menudo, but in general, it would be these. I never listened to the hard rock, but AC/DC, I think, and Kiss were also groups that people listened to. A lot. Phil Collins also, more in the romantic side. Yeah. You need to understand that for us, we had the Walkman. That was the thing, the big thing that came out in the 80s, which was like a little electronic box where you would put a cassette or radio, and then there were headphones connected to it. So you could carry this portable player. That, of course, is preceded your iPod or your MP3 players, but back then, I remember when Santa Claus brought that for me. I was so happy. It was the biggest thing, and we all had our Walkmans on, and we could bring them to school. We couldn't use them in school, but we could bring them to school, and you were very cool if you had a Walkman.
And let me ask just one more question: why did you choose St. John's? What made St. John's so special for you to keep on the legacy?
Well, it goes back to this, what I mentioned before about happiness. As a parent, you want to give your children what you think is the best. And for me, the best is not only a good education, a quality education, but also a nurturing place of happiness. And because St. John's provided that for me, I thought, and I wasn't mistaken, that it would be the right choice of school for you guys.
Thank you, Mom. This is Felipe Albors signing off. You have just listened to a presentation from WSS Radio, where every day is history.
Tere, Riera, Carrión, class of 1988.